we just got back from a church event, a church outreach here this morning, and so still got my prayer shirt on. By the way, if your church is looking for prayer shirts, this one says need prayer, and it has our church name at the bottom. If you're looking for shirts similar to this, we actually make these and sell these. So you can visit our website, crossandcottondesigns.com, and you can actually personalize them there. I'll put a link. But anyway, it was a great day at the park. We got to pray for people. It was really great just to be out, to be with the people of our city, of our town, and to be able to pray with them. We were handing out water that had the salvation message on the side, had information about our church. But here's the thing, right now our church is kind of small, and because it's a church plant, like we're just getting started, and it is really hard sometimes not to compare yourself, am I right? The same thing happened to me earlier this week. Me and Johnny, we have re-released a book. It was a book that previously we had written a few years ago, and we decided to update it, change the name so we could actually get more advertising to be able to get it out there to more people. And so we re-released it under a different name called Behind the Battle, and it just released, the ebook just released this week. And I found myself hardcore in comparison mode. The thoughts ran into my head again today thinking about church stuff, whether it's your church or things you're in your own personal life, or if you're a woman out there, it's really hard not to compare yourself. And what do you say? What do you think about when that's happening? Like, you're comparing yourself to an ideal somewhere, whether it's something you saw on social media, whether it's a friend or a family member, or like in this instance for us today, it's like we're comparing ourselves to all these other churches that are in town. And it's really easy to think like, man, I'm not enough, right? Like what I'm doing, I'm trying hard, it's never gonna change. And we keep having those thoughts of, man, I'm just not enough. We don't have the right programs yet. We don't have the right space yet. Or, I'm just not as out there as this other person is. Or we can make up all these excuses, but they have that root in comparison, because we are comparing ourselves to somebody around us. And that's a really dangerous trap to be in, whether you are talking about church stuff like I was just saying, or whether it's in your personal life. Comparison is such a dangerous trap, because you are taking the gifts, the callings, the talents, the personality that God has given you, and you're comparing it to somebody else, saying, oh, that's the standard. That's what I should be, but I'm not, I'm me. And that's dangerous. Now, I want to tell you why, because there's a couple of angles with this. One thing to keep in mind is that, it's okay to look at maybe inconsistencies that you have, maybe things that you can improve upon, and say, hey, that's an area where I can grow in. Like I need to do a better job at, whatever it is, picking up the socks off the bathroom floor. Okay, that's one thing. But when you just start saying, when it gets so bad where you are constantly comparing yourself, well, we're not them, what's never gonna work out, I'm just not pretty enough, I'm not this enough, I'm not that enough, I'm not outgoing enough, that's when things start to get bad. And it's really easy to try to compare ourselves with other people, but we're not supposed to do that. I was thinking about that particularly this week when we launched the ebook. And the ebook, it did pretty good. We got a top new release batch. I was excited about that. And, but you just find yourself thinking like, well, it wasn't a bestseller. Well, it didn't get this many sales. You start finding yourself doing that. And it's like, whoa, hold the phone. And I just had to remind myself that that's not the standard. That's not who I'm measuring myself against. I need to be looking and saying, okay, was I obedient to what God told me to do? Absolutely. Have I done everything in my power to accomplish what He's told me to do? Absolutely. Okay. Well, then in that case, I'm going to let it go. I'm not responsible for somebody else's calling. I'm not responsible for somebody else's sphere of influence. I'm not responsible for any of those things. But what I am responsible for is what God has put in my hands. The gifts He's put in my hands, the callings He's put in my hands, the instructions He's put in my hands, that is what I am responsible for. And I really was thinking about this in context of the parable of the talents in Matthew chapter 25. And it's in verses 14 through 30. And if you're not familiar with that story, I'm going to summarize it quickly. So this is a parable that Jesus tells. It tells about a man going on a journey, and he gives his 3 servants 3 different amounts of talents. In this case, that's a form of money. So one servant he gave 5 talents, another servant he gave 2, and another one he gave 1. And while the master was gone, the servants did different things with what the resources they were given. So the servant who was given 5, he went out, he invested, he worked with it, he actually ended up making 5 more. The servant who was given 2 went out, worked with it, invested in all those things, and then when the master came back, he worked with it, he was given 2, he worked with it, he invested it, when the master came back, he had a total of 4. And then the final servant, who just had one, he was really afraid of failure, okay? The Bible doesn't necessarily say failure in those exact words, but he said, "Sir, you're a hard man. I was really worried I was going to lose your money. So instead of doing anything with it, I just went and hid it in the ground to make sure you would have your money back." And so when the master came back and evaluated these things, the 2 servants that he gave 5, that doubled it to 10, and the servant he gave 2, that doubled it to 4, he said, "Hey, well done, good and faithful servant. You took what I gave you and you did something with it." But to the servant who just buried it in the ground, he said, "You are a wicked and lazy servant." And he was very displeased with him. And he took away what he had given it, and he gave it to the one who had more. And in verse 29 of that parable, it says, "To those who use well what they are given, even more will be given, and they will have an abundance. But from those who do nothing, even what little they have will be taken away." And that verse just popped up into my mind this week as I was comparing myself to, whatever my ideal was, and realizing, you know what? It doesn't matter if I'm a 5 talent person, a 2 talent person, a 1 talent person. It's my responsibility to take what God has given me and to multiply it, to use well what he has given me. So if he's given me the talents right, well then I'm gonna write. I'm gonna keep doing it. I'm gonna keep putting it out there. If he's given me the ability to speak, well, I'm gonna keep speaking. I'm gonna take those opportunities to be able to speak, and I'm gonna, I'm gonna do the videos, do the podcast, do all of those things. I'm not gonna be so afraid of failure, and I think that's where sometimes things happen, is we get to the point where we're afraid of failure. We're afraid of stepping out and doing something, and we're afraid that it's not gonna work out. Maybe we'll, be embarrassed, or maybe we will lose a little bit of money. So instead of taking the risk, we just say, "I better not," and we don't do anything. And that type of attitude is the wrong attitude to have. Yes, we need to act wisely, but also make sure you are doing the things that God has called you to do, and has put those things in your hands to do. And I think that was part of it for me. It's like, I never want to be so afraid of failure or so embarrassed by failure that it keeps me from trying things. And that's really, we put so much weight on being embarrassed and feeling like a failure. We put so much weight on that we let those ideas keep us from trying new things. And honestly, like that's not biblical. And it's really hard to work around, because you have to have that confidence in yourself. And you have to have that confidence in the Lord. And you might be saying, "But actually, I don't have confidence in myself. What do I do?" Okay, like I totally get that. It doesn't, when you're talking about having that confidence in yourself, sometimes it doesn't mean that everything just magically gets easy. Like, "Oh, I'm confident." No, it's like there's still that, you still have those thoughts of, "I don't know if this is going to work out. I don't know if anyone's going to buy what I've written. I don't know if anybody's going to watch." Just those thoughts that are coming really from the enemy that get you to think what could go wrong. And so when those things happen for me, what I always go back to is I go back to what the Bible says. And it's like, okay, what has God said in his word? And when I look at those things, and when I evaluate those things, then evaluate what God has asked me to do and the instructions he's given me. And then it's like, you know what? I'm not going to worry about it. I'm not going to worry about if I fall flat on my face. I'm not going to worry if it flops. I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure it doesn't. But if it does, then okay, I tried. I did something. I put in the work. I actually was trying to go forward. And even in that parable that I mentioned, when the master was addressing the lazy servant, he's like, "You could have at least put that 1 talent in the bank to earn at least a little bit of interest." He only seemed upset because of inaction. He didn't seem upset because of failure. He seemed upset because he didn't do anything. So I ask you today, what talents do you have in your hand? What abilities? What are the things that God has called you to do that you can start moving forward in? The other couple of verses I wanted to mention, let's see, there's actually quite a few. That I'm going to mention the one in Nehemiah. I absolutely love this verse. If you're not familiar with the book of Nehemiah, because that book can kind of get lost sometimes, but it is a really great book. It is a book that's more of a history book in the Bible. It is the story of Nehemiah and Ezra after all the Israelites had been exiled out of Israel. The northern and southern kingdom, they were exiled, and then Nehemiah and Ezra, they lead a group back to start rebuilding the temple, to start rebuilding the walls. And in Nehemiah, they're really focusing on getting the walls rebuilt. But guess what? There were people who were opposed, who were like, "No, we don't want you to do that." And let that be a lesson to you too. There's always going to be somebody who doesn't want you to go forward. There's always going to be somebody who, if you're saying, hey, guess what? I'm writing a book. Oh, well, that's really hard. Maybe you shouldn't do that. Or, hey, I want to start telling more people about Jesus. Well, some people don't like when you do that. There's always going to be somebody in your life who's going to try to get you to stop, okay? And those are the times where you really have to recognize, what am I supposed to do with my life? Okay, that is where your confidence lies. Your confidence lies in what the Bible says and in what God has called you to do. Those are the things that you stand on. You're going to have people who come up that are naysayers to try to get you to stop, who sow those seeds of doubt in your mind. But you just got to cast those aside, forget about them. And that's where this verse from Nehemiah comes, because there are people who are trying to get him to stop building the walls. And these people were so serious about trying to get him to stop that they were willing to cause him harm, like permanent harm, in order to get him to stop. And so they had sent him this letter like, hey, come and meet with us. And Nehemiah realized that this was just a plot trying to get him off the task. And so his response, this is in Nehemiah chapter 6, verse 3. So I replied by sending this message to them. I'm engaged in a great work, so I can't come. Why should I stop working to come and meet with you? And that, man, like, I love that verse because it is just that reminder even for me. It's like when there are those people who seem like they're trying to get me off the plan, trying to get me off the call of God for my life, trying to distract me with things that don't matter. It's just like, hey, you know what? No, I'm sorry. I'm engaged in a great work for the Lord. I can't come. Why should I stop what I'm doing to come meet with you? No, I'm going to keep going. Okay, that doesn't mean you're not kind to people or anything like that. But more so what I'm saying is when you have those naysayers, those negative Nancys or negative Neds or whatever. Anyway, maybe it's a friend or a family member who's trying, like, oh, everybody has a YouTube channel. You don't need to be on YouTube. Or, everybody's already written a book. You don't need to do that. Or, why would you do that? There's going to be people out there who are negative. Just let it roll off your back. You're like, you know what? I'm sorry. I'm engaged in a great work. I don't have time to address that. I'm going to keep going for the Lord. Okay? Because inaction, going back to the parable of the talents, inaction was the thing that was detestable. Not doing anything, being lazy, that was the thing that was detestable in the sight of the master. Okay? But action, moving forward, even if you're going forward and failing, at least you are trying, right? Okay? And then God can work with that. He can give you instruction. He can give you those ideas. He can give you those connections to where you can be more successful. And then finally, in Galatians chapter 6, verses 4 and 5, it says, pay careful attention to your own work, for then you will get the satisfaction of a job well done, and you won't need to compare yourself to anyone else. For we are each responsible for our own conduct. So you are responsible for you. You're not responsible for Bill Gates and what he's doing. You're not responsible for your neighbor. You're not responsible for your pastor or anybody else. You are responsible for you, okay? Their calling is not your calling. What you're supposed to do is not what they're supposed to do. God has created you for a purpose. He has created you on purpose. You are here to make a difference in the lives of people. Don't get so bogged down with comparing yourself to other people that you forget that God has you here for a reason. He has you here for a purpose, and may you make sure that purpose gets done. Okay, because ultimately that's what you're responsible for. So don't worry about the naysayers. Don't worry about the people who are trying to get you off your game. If what you're doing is not sinful and agrees with the Bible and it's what God's told you to do, then go for it. Don't compare yourself. Don't be upset if it doesn't work out the first time or the second time or the third time or the fourth time. You just keep going forward. Okay, keep being obedient to the Lord, because that is one of the most important things as a follower of Christ that you can do, is to be obedient to the Lord. So, all right, that's all I'm going to talk about today. So, like I said, if your church needs a shirt, or even if you just like the shirt, if you want to wear it around to stores, be available for people, it opens up great conversations. You don't have to have a church name on there. It can just be blank. But anyway, you can head over to our website, clothandcottondesigns.com, and check it out. Also, our ebook, Behind the Battle, launched this week. If you have no idea what that book is about, that's the book that me and Johnny wrote together. And when he was dealing with an addiction with pornography, it was really hard as a wife to figure out how to do things. How do you handle things? How do you respond when your one and only tells you that he's been looking at porn? And this book was written out of that time in our lives. So it has a lot of biblical advice. It has a lot of practical advice. And Johnny's portion of it, he really kind of goes behind the scenes and lets you know, like, hey, this is what your guy could be thinking his mindset. This is probably other things that he's dealing with, and really opens the door, kind of pulls that curtain to really see what's going on in this battle. So the ebook is available now. You can go to Amazon or your favorite ebook retailer and get that. We have it on our website, johnnyandashley.com. Also, the paperback and the hardback will be releasing later this month, so maybe beginning of next month. So we're still getting all the covers all situated. Anyway, so that's coming out soon. Be looking for it. Listen, know that the Lord loves you so much. He has a plan. He has a purpose for you. Time is short, okay? Let's do everything that we can for the glory and the honor of the Lord. So that's it. Bye.